Welcome to the Farm Life Podcast, brought to you by the Kings County Farm Bureau. I'm your host and executive director of the Farm Bureau, Dusty Ference, and our guest today is Chip Mello. Chip, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. It's nice to be here.
Well, we're glad to hear that. Why don't you take a second and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
I was born and raised here in Hanford and been in agriculture my whole life. It's just what I do, I feel. It's part of who I am, and I like the people that are involved in agriculture. They're great people. Sometimes I think misunderstood, but they're all good to me.
Misunderstood. I think that could be a theme for the year, probably.
Yeah, correct.
So, Chip, you were recently elected as the chairman of the Kings County Water District. Is that right?
Correct.
And you haven't been involved with the water district all that long, have you?
Not really. Just trying to follow up with, the issues that we had, their role in the GSA, and the function of Kings County Water District is still, I understand the basis of it, but I'm still, for the future anyway, what our role should be. I think, and that's debatable from person to person. Everybody's got an opinion, and it's more than welcome to consider. The water environment is so different going forward that I think the district has to realize that, adaptation is needed, because we should be functioning slightly different than we were, we have been, I guess, in the past.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just so our listeners understand, how did you get involved in the water district, and what's the journey been like since you got involved last year?
The involvement was because I just felt like, I felt like my vision of the future wasn't really, it wasn't shared, I don't think, with the district and how they were functioning and what we needed to do moving forward. Just from seeing the plan that we submitted to the state, just some things needed, I think some input needed to be, there needed to be more grower involvement, and the voices weren't heard, whether there was the workshops that they conducted, all the comments that people made. It just seemed like it kind of fell on deaf ears, and that's not okay. I mean, you have to listen to the community and the people. You may not always agree, right? But you definitely need to listen to them with respect and consider what they say.
Yeah, so I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, that you gained interest in serving on the water district board as a result of their role in the Mid Kings River GSA and some of the things that were happening or not happening with the GSA.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Want to make sure that's clear for our listeners. Okay. So let's talk about how you got on the board. You were an appointee to the board of directors, right?
Yes.
And you filled a seat. Which district at the water district do you serve on, or which area?
I believe it's District 3. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I knew this. I believe it's District 3, but it was the one that Steve Diaz had prior to myself.
So explain to our listeners kind of what area of the city and county that makes up.
It's kind of in the middle, from north and south towards the middle, but on the eastern boundary, I guess I should say. You shouldn't say border. On the eastern side of the district.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So you were appointed after Steve resigned, and that happened in which month last year?
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I don't remember the month.
I wrote down September, but I wasn't clear if that was exactly right.
I'd be lying if I say I knew. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. But.
Doesn't really matter. It was late in the summer, early in the fall. It wasn't, it was only 3 or 4 months ago, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So short term.
Yep.
And you were elected to the chairman 2 months to the chairmanship 2 months after you were appointed?
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Because we had 2 new members that were reseated, and they weren't there for, they were newly seated. So I was the even though I've only been there for a couple months, at that particular meeting, I had been there the longest, I guess.
Right. And you went from being appointed to having to run a little bit of a campaign, right? Or deciding to run for public office, right?
Right, right. I didn't actually, because I was unopposed, I did not have to run a campaign. But if somebody did decide to run against me, I would have had to run, had a campaign and managed that and all the above. But I was unopposed, so I did not have to run the campaign.
Yeah, yeah. But you really didn't have any time to think about it either. You got appointed and I think had to pull papers almost immediately, right?
Correct, correct. If you weren't on that seat for so many days, you would have to run as a candidate.
Okay.
You weren't, anyway.
Yeah. All right. So we've established you saw a need to get involved, took on a leadership role pretty quickly. Haven't been there very long. But what can you tell us about your time on the Water District Board and your time serving there as the chair of that board?
I'm trying to educate myself. There's a lot of things that go on at Kings County Water District that people don't realize. I didn't realize, but I'm trying to get familiarity with it and understand how it functions and how we can better, serve the people that are in the boundary. So there's a lot of geological things that need to be understood, capacities, flows, how the funds work, budgetary. I can honestly say that I'm still learning. I don't claim to be an expert at this point, but I've learned a lot in the last 2 months or so. So
I believe that.
yeah.
And I do believe there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
This is by no means an easy undertaking that you decided to endeavor here. How much time in a week or in a month do you think you dedicate to water district business or?
Well, water district business, I wouldn't say, I would say a few hours a week. But then there's, the GSA is where I think a lot of my time is spent thinking about how the functionality of it. I mean, because the GSA to me is probably the most important thing. That's the priority. Mm-hmm. Kings County Water District has a huge role in that. But the GSA right now, getting us, a good plan in place that everybody can support and live with is going to be key. So the water committee and the GSA side is where I think majority of my time is spent, trying to educate myself about those issues.
Sure. Why don't you expand on the thought of the water district having a role in the GSA a little bit more? And just so we're clear, you're talking about the Mid Kings River GSA.
Correct. Yes, Mid Kings River GSA. So right now, the board of directors is actually the supervisors, which I will commend the board of supervisors for taking on that role because they did not have to do it.
Right.
Kings County Water District got out of the GSA. Somebody had to step in and manage it, or it would have been an unmanaged area. Mm-hmm. So I do commend them. They probably did not want to take on this role. It's not something that I think that all of them just naturally are, educated, needing to know what options we need and understanding the geology. They have enough stuff to do. But they did do it correctly, where they formed a committee, and the committee is full of a lot of great, intelligent people that I think are going to do their best to try to, get whatever we can and for the people and the options that they need. They also have to get a plan approved by the state. So it's a difficult balance. You got the state asking for certain criteria or demanding it, I guess, or to get approval of your plan. And then you have, the people that need something as well. So we're going to do the best that we can as far as the committee. And the committee is actually supposedly making all the decisions, creating the plans, and the board of supervisors are just approving that.
Right.
So they don't necessarily want to do all of the work, from my understanding. The committee is going to be doing all the work, trying to create the policies and get the plan straightened up. And at that point, the board is supposed to approve it, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what they tell us the plan is.
right. Sounds good.
It sounds good, right? So what role do you think the water district plays in the groundwater sustainability plan that the committee is working on right now?
So that's the thing. At the very least, there needs to be some type of coordination agreement between the Kings County Water District and the GSA, because everybody knows that you need surface water deliveries to deposit on these flood years in order to extract water from the ground. And Kings County Water District has the right to this surface water, and they have to decide who gets it and how it flows, and they determine that. So it's important that they're such a huge part of this whole piece. Even though they have no jurisdiction over groundwater, they have the jurisdiction over the surface water, which now the two are connected, right? I mean,
right.
you can't, they were used to be completely separate, but now through Sigma, we have to make sure we're sustainable, and those two are connected in some fashion. So I think the original JPA was drafted how it should have functioned. There should have been more stakeholder involvement, but the Farm Bureau and everybody fought really hard to try and get these seats and try and get a voice, and we've achieved that. You guys have achieved that. I shouldn't take the credit for it. Farm Bureau is definitely the backbone of that success. But now that we have the seats and the people and they have the voice, you got to do the hard work.
We got to do the real work now.
Yeah. So, and that's not easy. You're gonna get there's gonna be a critic no matter what you do.
Right.
So, like I said before, the people that are involved in the committee are very intelligent, good people that want what's best for the community. So we'll try and figure out whatever we can, but I just don't know. It still has to fly by the state. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
And I think everybody would agree that there definitely has to be, at the very least, a good working relationship between the GSA and the Kings County Water District.
Correct. And Kings County Water District services, it's not just the Mid-Kings, right? So it overlaps. It has some of the greater Kauai involved in it. So it has a right to make sure that we're listening to everybody's needs.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult.
It's going to be difficult. Yeah. I don't think enough people understand how intricate water management is. There's so many layers, and it's so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
There's not just one set of constituents or stakeholders that you got to worry about.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's always kind of been that way, but for certain, the importance of it and the level of importance is so much greater than before, that I think that some things that were just kind of overlooked, can't be overlooked anymore.
Sure.
So that they got to be truly thought about and considered and reevaluated for sure.
For sure. Yeah. We're going to do a deep dive on our next episode with Garrett Gilcrease, the chair of the Mid-Kings River GSA Stakeholder Advisory Committee. We're looking forward to see what he thinks about all this.
Yeah. Well, Garrett's a great guy, very intelligent. I'm glad he stepped up to the plate and is the chair. I mean, he's great at what he does, and he understands the geology very well and understands what we need. So, be an interesting interview.
For sure. Is there anything that you need as a director on the water district from your neighbors or from the constituents that use water? Like, is there any way that the people around you need to think about supporting you in your role rather than you supporting them?
That's a great question. I mean, I really try to put myself in everybody's shoes. We have a lot of different types of people that grow, from a grower standpoint, grow many different types of crops. Mm-hmm. And how each decision is going to affect those, just because my situation is what it is, you have to think about a grower that might have 40 acres, then one that has 400, that has, a few thousands of acres. So they're all going to be affected differently. And crop selection, when is water needed, mm-hmm. right? And it's going to be difficult to balance all those because we have in the especially in this area, we have such a variety of not only crops but types of people that are in different predicaments that you need to consider. So that's where, I mean, I kind of understand certain people's situation, but if they have any questions or want to enlighten me about, their particular situation that needs to be addressed, I feel like it's my duty to be all ears and at least listen to consider what they're saying.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's all we can ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. So earlier this week, the Trump administration signed an executive order mandating that some water be released from some of our reservoirs around here. Are you guys, as the water district, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Any concerns over water releases right now?
Yeah, it seemed to be very weird. I got a or an email. It didn't make any sense. I wouldn't imagine the administration would do something like that, knowing that if they knew the details.
Right.
So that's what's kind of weird about. So I guess they're calling it off, from what I understand at this point.
Okay.
Seemed like there was some type of misunderstanding.
I think so.
I don't know how that could have happened, or why somebody knowing at the Army Corps of Engineers, knowing what type of cause a capacity flow. Like, I don't understand that when they should have the data for the snowpack, and they take all this into consideration before they make these recommendations.
Yeah.
So, without knowing the details, I don't know if I can comment too much other than it's just very suspicious.
Yeah, it was an odd maneuver.
Yeah.
I don't know much more about it. I know I was talking with some colleagues in Tulare County last week, and a couple of boards of supervisors over there, and there was a lot of turmoil and a lot of excitement over the releases and trying to figure out where the order came from and how to roll it back a little bit.
Yeah. But people that have been in the water industry for decades couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
It was kind of odd to them.
Yeah.
Especially the time usually they give. There's discussion about it prior.
Right.
Not something that just happens.
Not flipping a switch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversations about the current year's water run yet? Any insight on when we're going to see water run in, anything like that?
I don't think they have all the details yet.
It's pretty early.
Yeah, it's a little too early. I mean, the snowpack does not look good, but we haven't had any of those discussions yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's preliminary, but it's going to be very different from the last 2 years. I mean, the year prior from last year was, a record year.
Right.
And we may never see one of those again.
We might not.
So, and the one after that was at least average. So, I think people kind of we needed that, though. Definitely needed that rain.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year was quite an anomaly. You almost never see an actually average rainfall year, and that's what we got last year.
Yeah.
Well, Chip, what else should our listeners know about you, your efforts on the Water District or the Mid-Kings River GSA?
I don't know. I'm going to do my best, to try and represent the people that I feel. But, I like I said, I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. If somebody can enlighten me about some details, I would be more than happy to listen to anybody. I think that's really, really important that you stay connected with the people in the community. Once you start thinking that you know more than you do, you start doing a bad job, when you're in those types of positions.
Yeah, servant leadership is, I think, what we're looking for.
Yeah, and to think that just because things have been this way for 30 years, that's not a good reason to continue to do that for 30 years.
Agree.
Like, if you have a good reason to do it like that, but if you have a better reason to do it differently, then you should do it differently.
Right.
Right. Transparency is key. Feeling like you're respected. When you walk into that agency or whatever, right? Like, they truly care about what you're saying. That's important too.
Yeah.
Just the morale. Some people, I think walk out of office, they're kind of intimidated by sometimes the information or what's coming at them, and that's not a good feeling. I think that everybody should feel free to walk in and ask whatever they want, and they should get a clear and true answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love hearing that. That's exactly what we think.
Right.
Gotta know.
Yep.
All right, Chip. Well, I think this was a good interview. Thanks for coming in and joining us today. I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you maybe later this year or first part of next year as you get your feet wet, pardon the pun,
Yeah.
as the chair of the Water District.
No, I appreciate everything that you guys do with the Kings County Farm Bureau. You guys are doing a great job. I mean, without you guys, any grower that has a well or in the farming community would not be in the position that they are right now without you guys' efforts. So I do appreciate it.
Well, thanks for saying that. In Kings County, agriculture is king. Ag is responsible directly for 25% of the jobs in the county.
Yeah.
There's no employer, no industry that's going to make that up if ag goes away, and that means that our community goes away without ag. So
Yep.
we're not fighting for the growers. We're fighting for the community of Kings County and keep it here, keep it thriving and doing well.
Yeah. Yeah. All righty.
All right. Well, to our listeners, thanks for tuning in today. If you haven't already, we encourage you to check out our website and learn about the Sigma Defense Fund. That's the effort that Kings County Farm Bureau is in the middle of right now, where we've sued the State Water Resources Control Board over their designation of probation in the Tulare Lake Subbasin. If you're not aware, we received a preliminary injunction in September of 2024, and the State Water Board has appealed that preliminary injunction. And because of the appeal, everything is on hold right now. Growers are not required to register wells, pay fees for well registration, report pumping information to the state board, or pay fees for that. And the state board is prohibited from implementing an interim groundwater management plan. But we don't have our trial yet, and that's when things really are changed in the eyes of the law and under the rule. So we encourage you to learn more about our efforts and consider making a financial contribution to the fund. Farm Bureau and its supporters has invested $380,000 to date to battle the State Water Board. And in 2025 alone, we imagine that we're going to need another $250,000 to $350,000. So we need your help, but it's not for us. We're doing it for you guys. Thanks for listening, and our next episode will be with, like we mentioned earlier, Garrett Gilcrease, and he's coming in as the chair of the Mid-Kings River Groundwater Sustainability Agency Grower Advisory Committee. That's a mouthful. Look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.